At some point over the last 2 decades, every major sports league made the same decision: playoff expansion. The NFL did it, the NBA did it, the MLB did it, and even NASCAR did it. They all looked at their product, their seasons, their championships, their history, and decided it wasn't enough. Not enough teams, not enough drama, not enough big moments. So they expanded, they widened their bracket, they added rounds, they engineered more elimination nights, more winner-go-home games, more chances for something unforgettable to happen. And on the surface, it worked. The games are watched, the moments are clipped, the revenue is up. But underneath it all, quietly, gradually, something has been lost. The regular season doesn't feel the same. The championships don't feel as earned, and the fans who remembered what sports used to feel like are starting to notice. This video is about what every league promised when they expanded their playoffs, what they were actually chasing, and what it's done to the sports we love.
Slope to right. Benson's first home run is a walk-off winner. Oh my goodness.
Every time a league expands its playoffs, the announcement sounds the same. More teams means more fan bases engaged deeper into the season. More elimination games means more iconic moments. More access means more parity. More chances for the underdog to shock the world. That's the promise. And honestly, it's a good one, because fans genuinely want all of those things. Nobody tunes in hoping their team loses early. Nobody wants a regular season that feels pointless. The idea that more meaningful games, more drama, more chaos, it sounds great on paper. But here's what the press never says. The NFL's expansion to 14 playoff teams in 2020 generated an estimated $150 million in new annual revenue. The NBA's play-in tournament turned what used to be meaningless late-season games into nationally televised elimination nights, and the ratings were enormous. MLB's expanded wildcard format kept more markets engaged longer, which meant more local broadcast money, more merchandise, and more eyes on the product. And NASCAR, revamping the entire sport by adding a gimmicked playoff system to try to artificially create iconic moments. In every single case, the business motivation and the fan-friendly promise were announced together. And in every single case, the business motivation was the real driver. That's not a conspiracy. That's how the league operates. They're a business first, and there's nothing wrong with that on its own. The problem is when you start making competitive decisions based on financial ones. When the format of a championship stops being about finding the best team and starts being about maximizing the number of teams relevant, when does the regular season stop being a filter and more of just a waiting room? Fans deserve to understand the difference between a format change that genuinely improves competition and one that improves the bottom line while telling you it's doing something completely different. Because once you understand what playoff expansion actually does to a sport, to its regular season, to its championship, to its entire meaning, the promise starts to look a lot less convincing. Now, let's go league by league, starting with some of the most defensible cases, and ending with the most extreme. The NFL, the most defensible case on this list. Before 2020, 12 teams made the playoffs. Now 14 do. One extra team per conference, a 7 seed that enters as the last team in the wildcard round. On paper, that doesn't sound like much. One team, how much can that actually really change things? The league sold it as more chaos, more Cinderella runs, more moments where the underdog shocks the world. And fans bought it, because that pitch is genuinely exciting. So let's take a look at what actually happened. Since expansion, there have been 10 games between the 2nd seed and the 7th seed. Here's the margin of victory: 12 points, 3 points, 21 points, 16 points, 3 points, 18 points, 16 points, 14 points, 14 points, 24 points, 13 points, and 4 points. That's an average margin of victory of nearly 13 points. Almost 2 touchdowns. 9 of those 12 games weren't even decided by 1 possession. The one exception, my favorite team in all of football, the Packers in 2023. A 7 seed that went into Dallas and dominated. It was electric. It was memorable. It was the only time it's ever worked. The 7 seed isn't a chaos agent the NFL is hoping for. It's just been a participation, it shows up, it plays, and almost loses by double digits. The expanded format didn't equalize contention. It televised the gap that already existed between the teams that belong and the team that just barely got in. And beyond the bracket itself, expansion quietly changed how teams think about the entire season. When nearly 44% of the league makes the playoffs, the question shifts from are we good enough to are we healthy enough? 9 wins gets you in. Sometimes 8 even does. Teams know that. Front offices build around it. And coaches manage to it. You see it in how teams approach the trade deadline. You see a conservative 4th down decisions late in the year when the playoff spot is already secure. You see it when starters get rested in week 18 with nothing left to play for. The urgency that used to define the second half of the NFL season has quietly faded for a significant portion of the league. Now, to be fair, the NFL expansion did do one thing right. When the NFL went from 2 first-round buys to 1, it made the number 1 seed the most valuable thing in football. There's no safety net anymore. Finishing second doesn't mean rest. It means playing on wildcard weekend against a hungry team with nothing to lose. That forced elite teams to keep pushing deep into December in a way the old format never demanded. The race for the top spot has genuinely never been more intense. So expansion did intensify the race to the top. I'll give the league that. But intensifying the top doesn't fix what happened to the middle. And when the bar lowers, the standard lowers with it. The NFL took the first step down a road that other leagues have traveled much further. And the further down that road you go, the harder it is to find your way back.
Is this the dagger?
The NBA took that road and kept going. And what happened in the NBA is where the real cost of expansion becomes impossible to ignore. In 2021, the league introduced the play-in tournament. 20 of the 30 teams now have the postseason path. 2/3 of the entire league gets a shot at the playoffs. Think about that for a second. 2/3. The league framed it as high-stakes basketball. More teams fighting for their seasons. More drama in April. And look, the play-in games themselves are genuinely entertaining. When they are good, they are really good. But here's what nobody wants to talk about. When the barrier of entry drops that low, the urgency to push through the regular season drops with it. And the people that feel it the most aren't the analysts, aren't the journalists. They're the fans. Think about this. A kid spends months begging their parents to take them to a game. Maybe it's a birthday gift. Maybe it's Christmas morning and their tickets are underneath the tree. That child has been waiting for this one night, one chance to finally see their favorite player in person. They have watched every game on TV. They know the starting lineup by heart. This is the night they have been looking forward to for months. And then they get to the arena, and that player is sitting in a suit on the bench. Load management, rest day, the team decided on this particular Tuesday in February wasn't worth the wear on their star player's body. That's not a basketball decision. This is a business telling a 9-year-old that the game they paid to see doesn't actually matter enough to even play in. And the play-in made this worse. When teams know they are likely getting in regardless, the game plan changes entirely. Why push through the grind? Why risk your best player on a February back-to-back when you can protect him for May? Why treat a regular season game in January like it actually matters when you have a mathematical cushion that almost guarantees you'll play in April anyway? The expanded format gave front offices a permission slip to stop treating the regular season like it counts. And the consequences of that decision ripple all the way down to the fan in the upper deck, who saved up for months just to be there. The people who paid the price weren't the owners, or the coaches, or the players resting comfortably at home. It was the kid in the stands, holding a jersey, with a number that wasn't even on the court. So out of all the sports on this list, the MLB, I probably have the least amount to talk about because they've done the least amount to their playoff system. The MLB is a very traditional sport. And the one thing they did change, I actually do like. But I wish they would even expand it further. Because at the end of the day, the MLB plays 162 games a year. 162. It is the longest grind in professional sports. 6 months. Almost every single day. Through spring training optimism, summer heat, and September pressure, a test of depth, consistency, and sustained excellence, unlike anything else in sports. The best teams in baseball aren't just talented, they are built to last. Built to perform night after night after night for half a year. And I'll give the MLB some credit here. They got one thing right. For years, the wild card was a single elimination game. One game after 162. One bad start from your ace, one off night from your lineup, and your entire season is over before the leaves have fully changed. That was genuinely indefensible, and moving to a 3-game series was the right call. A best of 3 at least gives you a fighting chance to recover from one bad night. But here's where the math still doesn't add up. 3 games after 162. That's the cruelest irony of what the MLB's built. 6 months of proving you're the best team in baseball. All of it can be erased in a weekend by a team that got hot at exactly the right moment. They went from 1 game to 3, and they'll give them credit for that. But they didn't fix the ratio. 162 games should mean more than that. And honestly, the fix isn't that complicated. Make it 5 games. That's it. You still get the drama, you still get the elimination rounds, but now you have enough games to actually separate the better team from the hotter one.
Try on the outside, just like yesterday. Here they come. It's a wow! And it's McMurray. No, it's not. It's Bodine. Jamie slapped it.
And then there's NASCAR, which didn't just expand a playoff field, and didn't just add a round or two, or include even a few more teams. They threw out the entire concept of a season-long championship and replaced it with something else entirely. Before we talk about NASCAR, we need to talk about where it started. Before 2004, NASCAR crowned its champion the right way. You raced all season, every race mattered, every point mattered. You accumulated your total over the course of the year, and the driver with the most amount of points when it was all over was the best driver that year. It was simple, it was clean, and it was earned. Then, in January 2004, NASCAR introduced the Chase the Cup format. After 26 races, the top 10 drivers in points, plus anyone within 400 points of the leader, would reset and compete over the final 10 races for the championship. Everything you built in the first 26 races still carried some weight. Your wins somewhat mattered, and your consistency mattered. The reset existed, but it wasn't dramatic enough to completely erase a dominant season. Was it perfect? No. The moment you introduce any kind of reset into a points-based championship, you already are asking the wrong question. You're already saying that what happened over the first 26 races matters a little less than what happens in the end. That's the crack in the foundation right from day one. But compared to what came next, the original chase looks very reasonable. But then, 2014, NASCAR decided the chase wasn't dramatic enough. Ratings were slipping, and they needed a fix. So they expanded the field to 16 drivers and introduced elimination rounds. 4 rounds, each cutting drivers from the championship contention. Suddenly, it wasn't just a reset anymore, it was a bracket, a tournament, a system where one bad race in the wrong round could end your entire season, regardless of how dominant you've been in the previous 7 months. And here's the part that should make every NASCAR fan furious. It didn't work. The ratings kept dropping anyway, year after year. The dramatic finish they promised never translated into an audience they were chasing. They traded the integrity of their championship for a TV product that still couldn't stop bleeding. But instead of asking whether the format was the problem, NASCAR kept doubling down. They introduced stage racing, breaking each race into segments with their own points and their own manufactured drama, another attempt to engineer excitement into a product that was losing fans for reasons that had nothing to do with whether the finish was dramatic or not. And that's where the whole thing falls apart. Every solution NASCAR reached for was about adding more drama, more moments, more content. None of it was addressed why people were actually tuning out. They kept rearranging the presentation while ignoring the foundation. Think about what elimination format actually means for your championship. You can win multiple races. You can lead the points for months. You can be the best driver on the circuit by every measurable standard. And then one blown tire, one pit road penalty, one moment of bad luck in a sport full of variables outside your control can send you home before the final round. That's not crowning the best driver. That's crowning whoever survived the bracket. The original chase at least kept the pretense that the full season mattered. When NASCAR built after 2014 threw that pretense out entirely and got nothing back in return. They stopped trying to find the best driver over a full year, started engineering moments, and still lost the audience anyway. And here's the part that makes the whole story complete. In January of 2026, NASCAR announced they were scrapping the elimination format entirely and going back to something closer to the original chase. After 12 years of brackets, resets, and manufactured drama, they finally admitted what the ratings had been telling them for years. It didn't work. The fans they were trying to win back never came back. And the fans they already had got tired of watching a championship decided by one bad afternoon. In every case, the promise was competition. In reality, it was just content. More games, more elimination nights, more viral moments, more revenue. And I want to be clear, I'm not saying these leagues are villains for doing this. They are a business. Businesses optimize for revenue. That's literally what they exist to do. But fans aren't shareholders. Fans are people who grew up with these sports. Who remembers when an NBA regular season game in February carried real weight in the standings? Who remembers what it felt like when playoff football was only reserved for the truly great teams? Who remembers when making the playoffs wasn't an expectation? It was proof. Proof that your team was genuinely good enough to be there. The thing that makes sports special isn't access. It never was. It's scarcity. It's the fact that not everyone gets in. That the long season filters out the pretenders from the contenders. That when your team finally makes it, when they finally punch that ticket, it means something real. Because not everybody gets one. Every time a league widens the bracket, they chip away at that feeling. Not dramatically, not all at once, but gradually, quietly, season by season, until one day you look up and realize the playoffs don't feel like playoffs anymore. They feel like an extended regular season with higher stakes lighting and a better TV deal. Leagues aren't selling championships anymore. They are selling the feeling of one. And until fans start demanding the difference, that's exactly what they will keep getting. Thank you guys for watching.